YouTube is changing in 2024. Here's what I think is going on. So quick little primer. I've been on YouTube for 11 years now. I've got a bunch of channels, 3 over 100K, one almost at 3 million. So I certainly don't know everything, but I've been creating, I've had some level of success. So I think I have some knowledge about the changes that we've seen and are about to see. So in 2024, if you watch one of my recent videos on this channel, you know that a lot of the goats of the past era, the greatest of all time YouTubers of the past era, the most successful, and you can debate what success means, but they've dramatically outperformed most creators on the platform. Matt, Pat, Tom Scott, those guys are all sort of stopping the game. And a lot of people are pointing at some of these new and up and coming creators and saying, this is the next wave, this is the new trend that's going on. And one of the guys I want to talk about first is a guy named Sam Sulek. He is an absolute tank. You know those videos or those photos you'll see of like genetically engineered cows that just get absolutely beefy? He sort of looks like that as a human being. And I'm not trying to trash talk him. He is an absolute monster. So he's a bodybuilder. He's a young guy, he's going to college, and he just uploads videos that have a very formulaic approach. They're usually 30 minutes to an hour or so. He's driving to a workout, he's doing the workout, he's flexing, posing, riffing, and all the while he's sort of meandering about the video, talking sort of stream of consciousness and existing in that space. And he's really blown up. I mean, I think he's probably over 1 million subscribers right now. And everyone in the creator space is pointing to him as the next wave of what YouTube will be. A return to authenticity, a return to low production, a return to sort of the you part of YouTube instead of scripting everything out to a T and doing more of a Mr. Beastie style approach where you've kind of created the content based on data instead of based on your own internal sort of locus of what I want to put out in the world. And I think that's right, and I think it's also wrong. Now, where it's right is everyone connects to people. People connect to people. When you look at the founders of brands, oftentimes they have a lot more of a subscribership or a followership than the brands themselves. Now, this isn't always true. For example, in our case, that is not true at Epic Gardening. But a lot of people, like a Mark Cuban, has way more of a following than the companies that he's created, probably all of them combined, even the Dallas Mavericks. Maybe, I don't know, don't check me on that, but you get the point. People connect to people. And so what you're seeing with a guy like Sam, and where I think YouTube might be going, is we're going back to sort of the rawness of the human experience. Everything's been over-optimized, everything's been overhyped, but here's where I think people are going wrong. They're saying, okay, you just make longer, lower produced videos, effectively, quote, lower effort videos, and you're gonna be fine. And I don't think that's true. I mean, if you look at a guy like a Sam Sulek, and I really encourage you, go watch his channel. You don't have to be into bodybuilding to learn something from it. In fact, for me, as a creator, what I learn the most from is people completely not in my own field. I don't even watch gardening videos here on YouTube at all. I barely consume gardening content at all. I consume content from other categories so I can learn what's going on over there and maybe apply some of that in my world. So if you go look at his videos, what you'll notice is, number one, he is an absolute specimen for the field he's trying to be in. He's clearly one of the most built out, dedicated, driven bodybuilders, and he has the results to show for it. So that's point number one. That's extraordinary. Number two, he has a personality that inherently is likable. You want to kind of root for this guy. He's kind of like this gentle giant sort of personality. And then number three, there's an earnestness to the work that he's doing that makes you kind of really want to follow along in that journey. And he does, probably without even knowing it, he does a really good job at sort of building in the ability for his community to kind of take his content, repurpose it, mash it up, throw it out there, and kind of expand his universe. And so I think a lot of the people that are saying YouTube's returning to raw authenticity aren't wrong, but you need to have something worth aspiring to as the creator for the audience to sort of accept that level of rawness. And so I think there's a correlation personally between the level of production and storytelling and narrative, etc., that you can gain some viewership on by investing in that side of it, versus the level of sort of how much naturally you are someone that people in your audience would like to become more like. And in his case in fitness, it's a really good example because that is a very aspirational category. Everyone who's in it is trying to get better, usually visually, and a lot of the times also in their health. And so when you look at a guy like him, if you're a bodybuilder, you go, okay, I definitely want to follow along and become like Sam. In 2024, I think what we're going to see is there's going to be some breakout creators in that realm, but it's not just like the door is open for anyone to do that. You can't just be normal on the bell curve in every sort of aspect of your life and expect that just shifting your format to that kind of content is what's going to help you break out. You need to have something special, something that makes you notable, or as someone like a Seth Godin would say, remarkable. What is remarkable is something you would remark on, right? Remarkable. I think sometimes you think of that word, you think like exceptional, etc. No, it's just the fact that you might make a remark on it. You know, if I was to walk down the street dressed up as, you know, a can of tuna and singing Fiddler on the Roof, that's remarkable. It's not like you want to be me, but you would definitely go home and say to your girlfriend, yo, I think I just saw Kevin from Ever Gardening like dressed like a fiddler on the roof and trying to eat tuna, whatever. You would see that and you'd say that. So that's what people are missing with this whole return to authenticity. You need to still be someone in some fashion that people aspire to and people want to follow along and root for that story. So the next thing about YouTube in 2024 is I think we're already in the next era of YouTube, but the markers of some of these big folks quitting is what is giving us that sort of cognitive delineation point for us to say, okay, we're actually in the new era. But it's already been happening, as evidenced by guys like Sam Sulek. He's been on YouTube for at least a year now, I think. So when you talk about these eras, you can look at it through the lens almost of video gaming and video game strategy. So when you play a competitive video game, if you haven't played one, there's the game, the rules of the game, right? And then there's what's called the metagame. And the metagame is the game above the game. It's how the rules are being utilized in that particular moment of time that everyone is playing that game. And so if you were playing StarCraft back in the day, you would say maybe that the Zergling Rush was a particular strategy that you could use if you were playing the Zerg race. And there was probably a time in that era where that was in meta, in the sense of most people who played Zerg would use that strategy and it would be very effective. And so the reason that this is important to understand is because these online platforms act very much like video game systems, except for they're not necessarily competitive. They're more additive. And so in the sense of YouTube, we've apparently been in what's called the spectacle era or the Mr. Beastification era. And this is where you have someone like Jimmy, who is a singular talent in exactly what he does, paved a way, right? So anyone that breaks out to such a level has done something in a way that no one has quite done before. It has become remarkable. It gets remarked on in the form of digital content, digital reactions, shares, etc., likes, follows, comments, expanding that audience. And then after it hits some sort of escape velocity point, what will then happen is the people who want to emulate that strategy will come in. That will sort of push that strategy into the so-called metagame of the platform or of YouTube at the time. And then you'll see an era develop, right? So you'll see the spectacle era develop. And what I mean by that is a lot of Jimmy's videos have to do with doing something at a very high level of cost or at a very extreme amount of money, $1 house versus $1 million house versus $100 million house type of thing. And so people would see that and say, if I make the concept bigger, more expensive, more destructive, then it will get views. And for a while that really, really worked. And so what will always happen, and this actually happens in ecological systems as well, so you can draw a lot of parallels between different fields of discipline and the one that you're in. Obviously, as a gardener, I think in terms of ecosystems a lot. And if you were to think about it in that way, you might say that if I've planted an abundant amount of onions in the field, well, then an onion fly is probably going to multiply a lot more than it would if I had a nice diverse field full of all sorts of different produce, right? So what will happen on YouTube and on these other platforms, someone breaks out, proves that a methodology that is novel is working, and then people will follow behind it and basically fatigue everyone out of caring about it in the first place. And what happens is the person who first created it sometimes has to keep evolving, which I believe someone like a Mr. Beast has done, but sometimes they sort of get drowned out in the crowd of all the people that have now sort of copied them. Maybe one of the people copying them sees it early and actually does it better. And so what I think you're going to see is you're going to see people realizing that the authenticity and raw long form metagame is working on YouTube right now and trying to copy that, but they won't have the requisite equation to actually make that work. You know, let's say I wanted to do a new channel on, I don't know, woodworking, right? I've been getting into wood carving just to relieve my stress from running Epic Gardening as a business lately, and I don't have anything really remarkable about myself that would make someone want to watch me make woodworking content. The only thing I could possibly think of is that I can talk in front of a camera relatively eloquently for some period of time, but I'm not good at woodworking, and I'm not going to edit the video in a way that's inherently engaging. I don't really have that skill set. And so why would I expect that to work? So I think you'll see a lot of people doing these long form, sort of raw, rough and ready videos and just not really finding a lot of success, and it'll be sort of an excuse for putting out kind of bad content, and then they'll blame the algorithm for not letting them have a piece of the pie. And it kind of brings me to a couple myths I guess I want to clear up about how YouTube works, or how I believe YouTube works. Is number one, and I learned this from Todd, who is the head of YouTube's algorithm. He says whenever you use the word algorithm, just substitute that for the word audience. So if you were to say the algorithm hates my content, oh man, the algorithm is so biased against me, well, just rephrase that into my audience hates my content and the audience is biased against me. And then ask yourself, well, why would they hate the content? If I was a member of my own audience, would I like this or would I not? And I think it kind of goes to a timeless principle of creating work on the internet or creating work in general. There's sort of two paths you can take. One is the artisanal artist's path, and that would be, I don't care if anyone likes it, I like it. And so I'm going to put it out because I like to see things come from my mind, express themselves in the world, and then just let the chips fall where they may. And I have truly no attachment to the reception of that content or that piece of art. And then there's the more creator type personality. I would put myself more in this category where I say, I want to make things, I want to create, but I want those things to be valuable and have utility and use for the person that is on the other side of the screen. If there's no use for them, whether it's entertainment, education, information, what have you, then to me, I've failed. And so I'm trying to always think, if I'm putting something out there, is it just something I think is funny or cool or artistic? Then sure, I will detach from the outcome. If it's something that I think is valuable and I want it to be valuable, then I'm really studying, why did this one not hit? What's going on with it? Was it the wrong framing? Was it the wrong video? Was it the wrong concept? Wrong time to post it? People weren't interested at this time of the year? Whatever the case may be. And so I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. I've seen your guys' comments on the last video. A lot of smaller YouTube channels were sort of talking in the comments saying, you know, the algorithm doesn't really like my stuff, or YouTube's not really treating these small channels really well. And the truth is, it's actually a really good time to be a small channel. They're very much emphasizing small channels on YouTube's homepage right now. The problem is, you're probably not good enough yet at creating engaging, informative, entertaining content and having people kind of buy into your journey. You want to think like, how can I be remarkable in some fashion, and work towards that? And I would say do it from a point of intrinsic motivation. I mean, for me, I love growing plants. I love business. I love health, philosophy. Obviously, I love YouTube. And so I'm just going to do this anyways. And so I might as well keep honing my craft. I do think there's a rawness, authenticity, sort of metagame developing. I don't think it is as clear cut as most people think. It's not some sort of formula for guaranteed success. And I do think every other game that has worked on YouTube, reactions, vlogs, spectacle, sort of classical media formats, all of those will still work. I mean, you can find many, many examples of YouTube channels that do the old style of content and still crush it because their audience actually wants it. So some thoughts for today. I'm not going to make every single video on here about YouTube, but it is the topic du jour. So until next time, peace.